The lantern light barely clung to life, its flame bending against the draft that whistled through the gaps in the cabin walls. On the dirt floor, a young woman lay curled in on herself, clutching an old blanket like it was her last shield against the world. Her lip bled from where his boot had struck. Her breath came in shallow, ragged pulls. "End it now," she whispered, the words trembling out of her throat, half a plea to heaven, half a surrender to the hell she lived in. The outlaw towered above her, a man thick with whiskey and rage, his eyes hollow yet burning with spite. His boots scuffed against the wooden planks as he staggered forward, belt still dangling from his hand. He spat at the floor near her face, sneering. "You think anyone's coming for you?" His voice was gravel soaked in liquor. "Ain't no one out there. Ain't no one ever gonna care." Her hands tightened on the blanket. She didn't answer. Silence was safer. Always had been. The outlaw snarled, kicking the lantern. It tipped, spilling warm light that threw wild shadows against the walls. For a moment, the cabin looked like a cage, iron bars drawn across her face. "Worthless," he growled, jerking her arm, yanking her to her knees. The bruise blooming along her cheekbone caught the glow. She winced, but her eyes, blue and sharp as river ice, met his, defiant, quiet, but unbroken. That look cut him deeper than any knife. His hand trembled, then he shoved her back hard into the dirt. She coughed as dust rose around her, the blanket falling half open across her chest. "Stay down," he hissed, voice low, dangerous. "Stay down, or I'll make you wish you had." The door creaked as he pushed it open, desert wind rushing in. He didn't look back. He never needed to. He believed fear was chain enough. His heavy steps crunched into the night, fading into the howl of coyotes waiting in the dark. The girl pulled the blanket tight again, rocking herself, whispering through broken sobs. "End it now." Just end it. The lantern flickered, weak but alive, casting trembling light over her face. It was the only witness to her suffering. The only proof that somewhere, despite the cruelty, a fragile flame of hope still burned. The night was cruel. A wind howled low across the desert flats, carrying the cry of distant coyotes. Bound at the wrists with rough hemp rope, the young woman stumbled as the outlaw dragged her from the cabin. His grip was iron, his breath heavy with whiskey. "Walk," he snarled, jerking the rope, "or I'll drag you through the dirt." Her bare feet scraped against rocks and cactus needles. Each step left a faint trail of blood in the sand. She wanted to cry out, but she had learned. Crying only fed his rage. So she bit her lip until it bled, keeping the pain silent. At the edge of the dry creek bed, he shoved her hard. She fell to her knees, dust rising around her like smoke from a dying fire. He tied the rope to a mesquite branch, pulling the knot tight until her skin burned. "You belong out here," he hissed, his face lit by the pale slice of moon. "Let the coyotes have you. You're nothing but a burden." She trembled, pressing her forehead against the rough bark. Her whisper cracked the silence. "Please, don't leave me here." He leaned in close, his breath sour. "Pray if you want. Ain't no God listening." Then he turned and walked away, boots crunching until they faded into the distance. The sound of him leaving was heavier than any blow. Alone now, she shivered violently, the desert night biting colder than steel. Her breath turned white in the air, each exhale a ghost. Coyotes yipped nearby, their voices echoing closer, hungry, her eyes lifted to the sky. Stars shimmered like shards of broken glass. "If anyone's out there, if anyone can hear me," she whispered, voice breaking, "don't let me die like this." She tugged at the rope, wrists raw and bleeding, but the knot held. Her knees buckled. Exhaustion pulled her downward until her cheek pressed against the cold dirt. For a moment, she surrendered. The wind howled louder, carrying the sound of hoofbeats, faint, distant, yet growing closer. Her lips parted. Was it real, or was it the last trick of her mind before death? The coyotes fell silent. Only the steady rhythm of hooves remained, cutting through the darkness like a promise. The night seemed endless, until a glow cut across the desert, swinging with each stride of a weary horse. A lantern bobbed in the darkness, its light spilling over sagebrush and stone. The sound of hooves grew louder, sharper, until it stood above her like thunder rolling through the canyon. The rancher pulled his horse to a halt. He was a broad man, weathered from sun and years of hard work. His coat was torn at the elbows, his beard streaked with grey, but his eyes were steady, eyes that had seen violence before and never turned away. He swung down from the saddle, boots crunching against the dirt. The lantern lifted, washing her face in light. Bruises, dried blood. "Rope biting deep into her wrists, Lord above," he muttered, his voice heavy, her lips parted, dry and cracked. "Please, don't let him take me back." He crouched, untying the rope with careful hands. As her body slumped, she clutched tighter at the old blanket wrapped around her chest. Something inside it shifted, soft, fragile. The rancher froze. For a heartbeat, his breath caught, lantern trembling in his grip. He looked at her, then at the blanket, but said nothing. "Not yet. Easy now," he whispered. "You're safe. I got you." She blinked at him through tears, uncertain if she believed it. Still, she didn't resist when he lifted her in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her head fell against his shoulder as he carried her to the horse. The desert wind cut sharp, but his coat shielded her as he mounted, cradling her with one arm. The old blanket remained pressed to her chest, as if her life depended on it. The ride back was slow, cautious. Each hoofbeat was steady, measured, the only sound against the wide silence. Her eyes closed at last, exhaustion claiming her. The rancher looked down, lantern light swaying across her face. "You hold on now," he said quietly. "Ain't no man gonna hurt you while I draw breath." When the cabin door creaked open, firelight greeted them. He laid her on the bed, pulling a quilt over her frail body. The blanket never left her grasp. The rancher sat in the rocking chair, lantern beside him. His gaze stayed on her through the long hours of the night, watching like a sentinel. The desert was cruel, but tonight, at least tonight, she was safe. The fire burned low in the rancher's cabin, casting long shadows that danced across the wooden walls. The young woman stirred under the quilt, her face pale but calmer than it had been in days. Outside the night was still, too still, the kind of silence that pressed against the skin and made the hairs rise on the back of the neck. The rancher sat in his chair, rifle resting across his knees. His eyes stayed sharp, scanning the glow of the window. Years of ranch life had taught him that peace was never to be trusted. Then, a creak, soft, measured, not the wind. The rancher rose slowly, boots brushing against the floorboards. He moved to the window, lantern light trembling across his weathered hand. There, just beyond the glass, stood the outlaw. Moonlight cut across his face, twisted in a sneer, eyes like burning coals. He lifted a hand, dragging a finger across his own throat, slow and deliberate. The rancher didn't flinch. He lifted the rifle, the barrel gleaming. "You best keep riding," the rancher said, voice low, steady as stone. The outlaw smirked, leaning close to the glass. His breath fogged against it. "She's mine." "Always will be." "Not tonight," the rancher replied, his grip firm. "Not ever again." The outlaw's grin faltered, just for a flicker, before returning sharper, crueler. He tapped the window once with a filthy nail, then stepped back into the darkness. His boots crunched faintly, swallowed by the desert silence. The rancher didn't lower the rifle until the sound had fully gone. Still, his gut told him the man hadn't left for good. Behind him, the young woman's voice cracked, weak but urgent. Was it him?" The rancher turned, his face softened by the glow of firelight. He nodded once. "But he's gone." For now, her hands clutched the old blanket tighter, knuckles white. Fear shimmered in her eyes, but so did something else. Trust. The wind outside rattled the shutters, sharp and restless. The storm hadn't broken yet. It was circling, waiting, ready to strike. The rancher sat back down, rifle across his lap, lantern burning steady. He knew the outlaw would return. The only question was when. Dawn crept over the horizon, painting the desert in pale gold. The rancher saddled his horse with quiet care, the young woman seated in front of him, wrapped tight in the old blanket. Her eyes stayed low, shadows still clinging to her face. But the first light touched her skin, as if trying to remind her there was still a world beyond fear. The town was just stirring when they rode in. Dust rose around the horses' hooves, drifting through the air like smoke. Men stacked barrels outside the saloon, women swept porches, and a few children ran barefoot through the street. But when folks saw her, bruised, hollow-eyed, clinging to the rancher, they fell silent. Whispers curled through the air. Everyone knew whose cruelty she had escaped. The sheriff stepped out of his office, a broad man with a badge dulled by years of weather and struggle. His eyes narrowed as he took in the sight. He walked forward slow, steady, his spurs jingling with each step. The rancher dismounted, lifting her gently down. "She needs protection," he said firmly, "and he needs stopping." The sheriff studied the girl's face, then the bruises along her arms. His jaw tightened. "I've seen what he does," he muttered. "I should have ended it long ago." Her voice trembled, but she forced the words out. "He'll come for me. He said he always would." The sheriff's eyes softened for a moment. "Not if I've got a say in it." He turned to the rancher. "Get her somewhere safe. I'll see to it the law holds this ground." But as he spoke, the saloon doors swung open. A pair of gamblers stepped out, shaking their heads. One muttered loud enough to hear, "Sheriff can't touch him. Man's got half the town in his pocket." The rancher's jaw clenched. The sheriff didn't look away, but the weight in his eyes betrayed the truth. This fight wouldn't be simple. He touched the brim of his hat, voice steady. "Stay sharp. He'll test us before he falls." The rancher nodded, leading the girl back toward his horse. Behind them, townsfolk kept whispering. Fear hung in the air, but for the first time there was something else too, a flicker of hope. The law had spoken, and the outlaws' days of unchecked cruelty were numbered. Night fell heavy over the ranch, the sky a black canvas streaked with thin silver threads of moonlight. The air was tense, thick with the scent of dust and pine. Inside the cabin, the young woman sat by the fireplace, blanket clutched tight around her shoulders. She could hear the distant howl of coyotes and the creak of the wind through the rafters. But something else stirred in the night. Outside, the outlaw returned. Not alone. Torches burned in the hands of a gang, their shadows leaping across the desert like hungry predators. Boots thudded against the earth, hooves of stolen horses pounding the dry ground, rattling the silence. The rancher heard it first. He rose slowly, rifle in hand, lantern swinging lightly to catch the movement in the yard. His jaw set, eyes narrowing. The firelight flickered against the walls, painting a warning across the cabin. "They're here," he whispered, low and steady. "Stay back!" "Stay quiet." The gang surged forward, setting the barn aflame. Horses screamed, flinging themselves against their stalls, hooves scraping and metal clanging. Sparks flew into the night sky, carried away by the wind, while smoke rolled across the desert like a dark wave. The young woman pressed the blanket to her chest, rocking slightly. Her heart hammered. She wanted to hide, but she stayed rooted, trembling. The rancher stepped out, rifle raised, eyes blazing. "Get away from my land." His voice cut through the chaos, cold and sharp. Gunshots cracked in response. Dust and sparks filled the air. The gang faltered, circling, trying to flank him. But the rancher moved with practiced precision, deflecting, dodging, standing firm. Every swing of his rifle, every shouted command, was a shield against the darkness pressing in. One of the outlaws lunged at the cabin door. The rancher intercepted him, slamming the barrel against the man's shoulder. The gang hesitated, uncertainty flickering across their faces. The young woman's lips parted, whispering a single prayer. The flames painted her face gold, the blanket now a small island of safety against the roaring chaos outside. The night stretched, tense and electric, as gunfire and flame battled against resolve and courage. The rancher's arms ached, sweat streaking dust across his brow, but he would not falter. Not tonight. Somewhere in the distance, a faint sound, like the beat of hooves approaching, hinted that the night's tide might yet turn. The ranch was a storm of fire and shadow. Smoke clawed at the sky, curling around the rafters like dark fingers. Sparks rained down from the burning barn, landing on dry grass that hissed and flared. The young woman pressed herself against the cabin wall, blanket drawn tight, eyes wide as chaos unfolded outside. The rancher moved like a force of nature. His boots scuffed against the scorched earth, rifle in hand, arms trembling from the effort, but steady in purpose. Each shot rang out, cracking through the night, answering the outlaw's jeers with deadly precision. "They'll never take her," he muttered under his breath, teeth gritted. Dust choked the air, sweat mixed with ash streaked his face. He shoved a thug back with the rifle's butt, keeping the gang at bay. The outlaw's confidence began to waver. One stumbled into the firelight, torch catching his sleeve. Panic flashed across his face as flames licked the wood beneath him. Around him, the gang hesitated, uncertainty breaking their rhythm. Then, hooves. The sound came from the edge of the property, growing louder, steady, unrelenting. Lanterns bobbed through the smoke-dense night. Sheriff and deputies, mounted and resolute, charged into the fray like dawn slicing through darkness. The rancher's eyes lifted. Relief and renewed strength surged through him. He shouted, "Back off, now!" His voice cut over the gunfire, commanding, unyielding. The outlaws faltered completely, some fleeing into the shadows, others dropping weapons in desperation. Deputies surged forward, dragging the ringleaders to the ground, shackling hands with practiced efficiency. The sheriff dismounted, badge glinting in the torchlight, voice sharp and final. "Justice rides with us tonight."